Hello everyone, today we are doing plus 1 political science long answer question PYQ series 1 of part A, Indian Constitution at work. Question number 1. Explain the functions of a constitution. The constitution allows coordination and assurances. It establishes the basic rules that help the members of society live peacefully by ensuring minimal coordination, specification of decision-making powers, limitation on the powers of government, aspirations and the goal of the society, fundamental identity of the people. Chapter 2. Rights and Duties in the Indian Constitution. Explain the fundamental rights included in Part 3 of the Indian Constitution. It is enshrined in Part 3 from Article 12 to 35 of the Constitution, and they are enforceable by courts and can only be altered through constitutional amendments. So the 6 fundamental rights. First one, right to equality, which ensures equal treatment and non-discrimination. So Article 14, equality before law. Article 15, no discrimination based on religion, race, caste, sex. Article 16, equal opportunities in public employment. Article 17, abolition of untouchability. Article 18, abolition of titles. Second, right to freedom. Articles 19 to 22 guarantees civil liberties essential for democracy. Article 19, 6 freedoms: freedom of speech, assembly, association, movement, residence, and profession. Article 20, protection against arbitrary punishment. Article 21, right to life and personal liberty. Article 21A, free education for children between the age group 6 to 14 years. Article 22, protection from arbitrary arrest and detention. Third, right against exploitation. Article 23, prohibition of human trafficking and forced labor. Article 24, prohibition of the employment of children below 14 years in hazardous occupations. Then fourth one, right to freedom of religion. Article 25 to 28 ensures religious freedom and prohibits forced taxation for religious promotion, freedom to practice, profess, and propagate religion. Cultural and educational rights. Article 29, protection of the language, script, and culture of minority groups. Article 13, right of minorities to establish and administer educational institutions. 6. Right to constitutional remedies. Article 32. It is considered as heart and soul of the Indian Constitution, and the writs are issued by both Supreme Court and High Court. It's under Article 32. Habeas corpus, release from illegal detention. Means produce the body, that is the meaning of habeas corpus. Then mandamus, order to perform a duty, certiorari, transfer or quashing of a lower court's order. Prohibition, prevents jurisdictional overreach. Quo warranto, means by what authority, prevents illegal occupation of public office. Difference between fundamental rights and DPSP. So fundamental rights are negative in character. That means it restricts state actions, impose restriction on the state, act as a limitation upon state actions, justiciable or enforceable by courts, mandatory for the state to implement these fundamental rights. Okay. Then comes the directive principles of state policy, or DPSP, which are positive in character, that provides guidelines for governance, act as an instrument of instructions for the state, non-justiciable or not legally enforceable, and optional but morally binding on the state to implement these. Third question, short note on National Human Rights Commission. It established in 1993, and it includes former judges and experts in human rights, investigates the human rights violations, promotes research and monitor the jail conditions, and address the custodial deaths, police excesses and riot cases that is happening all over India. And it cannot prosecute. The limitations include it cannot prosecute, and it's only make recommendations. So it is a recommendatory body only. Chapter 3, Election and Representation. Question number 1. Find out the 3 reasons behind the adoption of first past post system in India. Answer: simple and easy to understand for the population, suitable for a large country like India, which is such a diverse and also vast. then provides stable governments, ensures direct representation. Voters directly elect their representative, making accountability and governance more effective. Second question, difference between proportional representation and simple majority system. In the simple majority system, voters vote for a candidate, not a party, and one representative is elected per constituency or from each constituency. A candidate does not need a majority, just more votes than others. No proportionality between votes received and the seats won. And this system is used in India, Britain, and United States of America. Then comes to proportional representation. Voters vote for a party, not an individual candidate. Multiple representatives can be elected from the constituency. A party or a candidate wins based on majority support. Seats are distributed proportionally to the votes received, and this system is used in Denmark, Israel, and Germany. What are the functions of Election Commission of India? The Election Commission of India is mentioned in Article 324 of Indian Constitution. They conduct free and fair elections, prepare and maintain the electoral roll, conduct elections for Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, state legislatures, president and vice president of the country, recognize political parties and allot election symbols, issue the model code of conduct, settle election disputes and complaints, set limits on election expenses, notify election dates and schedule, appoint polling officers and ensure smooth conduct of elections, give advice on disqualification of elected representatives, count votes and announce the results, ensure custody and security of the ballot machines. At least try to remember 6 to 7 so you'll be able to score good marks. Fourth question. Indian election system has many drawbacks. Give your suggestions to reform the electoral system in India. So question is about giving suggestions. So here the answer include introduce proportional representation, because in India we are following the first past the post system, right? Simple majority one. So you can just introduce the proportional representation one. Ensure women's reservation in elections. Provide political education or awareness to voters. Control money power and muscle power in elections. Bar criminals from contesting elections. Prohibit caste and religious appeals in campaigns. Election expenses should be paid from a special government fund. Make voting compulsory. Impose president's rule during elections for fairness. Introduce multi-member constituencies. Link electoral rolls with biometric details for voter authentication or verification. Chapter 4. The Executive. Briefly explain the powers of the Prime Minister of India. He is the head of the cabinet, forms the ministry, decides ministry size and changes, assigns portfolios, leader of the ruling party, leader of the Lok Sabha, chairman of Niti Aayog, decides government policies, set the major policies and strategies, link between the President of India and ministers, that communicates the government decisions to the President. Question number 2. Write any 3 discretionary powers of the President of India. First one, send back advice, can return the advice given by the Council of Ministers for reconsideration. Then pocket veto, can withhold or refuse to sign a particular bill without a time limit. Appoint Prime Minister. The President can choose a Prime Minister when no party has a clear majority in Lok Sabha. Question number 3. Compare Parliamentary Executive and Presidential Executive. Parliamentary Executive. Prime Minister is the head of the government. The President or the King is only a symbolic head. The Prime Minister and Ministers must answer to the Parliament. The Cabinet Ministers hold the real power. All ministers work together and share responsibility, the idea of collective responsibility. Okay, then the ministers are also members of the Parliament. Then comes to the presidential executive. President is both the head of the government and the head of the country. President has real power and makes key decisions in the country. The president does not have to answer to the Parliament. The ministers work under the president's command. The president is not a member of the Parliament. Fourth question, functions of the permanent executive or bureaucracy. First one, making rules and regulations, helping ministers, Policy implementation, like the bureaucracy ensures that the government policies and decisions are carried out effectively. Then decision making in departments. The government departments make important decisions, sometimes acting like a court in specific matters. Chapter 5, Legislature. Why do we need two houses of parliament in India? Explain. So first one, it is because India's vast size requires a two-house system for better governance, then accommodating the diversity, fair representation, double check on the decisions, like laws and policies are reviewed twice to prevent hasty decisions. Then the state representation provides a voice for the states in national decision making. A legislature has several functions. Explain the functions of the Indian Parliament or Indian legislature. First one, legislative functions, makes laws on union, concurrent and residuary subjects, control over executive, financial functions like approves taxes, expenditures, representation, represents a diverse regional, social, economic and religious groups across country. Fifth one, debating functions, then constituent function, like amends the constitution with a special majority in both houses. Electoral functions, elects the president and vice president of India. Judicial functions, like handles the impeachment process. Third question, a bill has to pass through various stages before it becomes a law. Explain the lawmaking procedure in Indian Parliament. An ordinary bill has to go through various stages of lawmaking in the following manner, like first reading, where the introduction of the bill is taking place and no discussions. Then comes the second reading, the discussion of the bill's basic principles. Third one, committee stage, detailed examination by the select committee. Fourth one, report stage, clause by clause discussions and drastic changes will be made in this stage. Then comes the third reading, final stage with verbal amendments, bill put to vote if passed, sent to the other house. Is the other house, like the same procedure will be followed in the second house. If needed, a joint sitting is also summoned. Then comes the presidential assent, where after passing in both houses, the bill is sent to the president for assent, and upon the assent of the president, the bill becomes a law. Indian Parliament controls the executive through various measures. Explain in detail these measures by considering the following hints. First, deliberation and discussion. Second, approval or refusal of laws. Third, financial control. Then the fourth one, non-confidence motion. For deliberation and discussion, the instruments used are question hour, the ministers respond to public interest issues. Second, zero hour, the members raise important matters. And here, these ministers are not bound to reply. Then adjournment motion brings urgent issues to the discussion. Then half-hour discussion, that's for public concerns. Secondly, in the ratification stage, a bill requires the parliamentary approval to become law. Then financial control means the budget presentation allows scrutiny of government policies and expenditure. The Lok Sabha discusses the financial needs, examines the misuse through the CAG reports and Public Accounts Committee, ensures the proper use of resources and evaluates the government policies. Finally, the non-confidence motion. Here it is considered as the most effective tool to ensure executive accountability. The government must resign if it loses the Lok Sabha's majority support. Thank you everyone for hearing. Think Socio.